The number of CPAs in the world that help with tax planning and even tax filing is just dwindling. In the next, I think, 10 to 15 years, 75% of CPAs are going to retire. Who's going to take the mantle? The LLMs have anywhere from like a 27 to 33% hit rate when it comes to like tax computation. My hypothesis from the very beginning was that like these models are not going to be able to solve tax. I'm trying to balance this by not revealing too much of how our internal system works. What we're doing and what we're building is basically solving for accuracy and precision. I met an investor serendipitously. He was like, Sree, like, what are you doing? And I was like, hey, look, like, this is what's on my mind. I've been thinking about this for a lot. He was like, oh, that's actually really interesting. How much money do you need?
On today's episode of the First 10 podcast, we are joined by a founder whose entire career trajectory is a masterclass in building. Our guest, Sree Tripuramallu, and he is a builder through and through. Sree spent his early years tackling deep engineering challenges as a senior engineer at NVIDIA, contributing to areas like autonomous vehicles and Clara Deploy. But it was in 2022 that he co-founded Mirage, an AI platform focused on generating high-quality 3D assets and later developing custom LLMs. Mirage secured backing from Sequoia Capital and demonstrated such rapid execution that the company was acquired by Harvey AI, an OpenAI-backed domain-specific AI for legal services. Just 2 years after its launch, Sree stayed with Harvey until July 2025, but he's now back to building. And this time he's building a startup, which we may or may not share a little bit about. We'll see how Sree is feeling. He joins us to share his journey so far, and hopefully to share a special founder ethos recipe that helps him do what he does best, building startups and scaling them with staggering speed. Sree, welcome to the First 10 podcast.
Thank you. That was a beautiful introduction. So,
Thank you. All credit to our producer.
yeah,
Glad to have you here. I
yeah,
found myself pretty fascinated by your story from when we first met, so I'm excited to share it with
yeah.
the world.
Thank you for having me. This is the first time I'm doing this, so it's exciting for me as well.
So, getting started, what's something that most people don't know about you, Sree?
Most people don't know about me. Yeah, I would say that, well, I started my career at NVIDIA, and at NVIDIA, there is a Slack channel called Personal Finance, and I'm proud to say that the first ever post that was ever pinned on that Slack channel was mine. And this was in 2018, uh, even though the company had been around for a while. So
Wow. Can you tell us about that post?
yeah, basically, someone had asked a question about like backdoor IRAs and mega backdoor IRAs, and then a friend of mine saw that and he tagged me. He was just like at Shree, and and then I just essentially wrote a post on what it is, how to do it, and what the financial implications of them are, and then the moderator of the channel just pinned it, and it's still pinned to this day. So
That's
uh,
amazing.
yeah,
Yeah.
uh,
I know we'll get a little bit into personal finance, but it's such a hidden world. I wish more people had just clearer and more direct access to
yeah,
the insights of it. So you were at NVIDIA before the ChatGPT moment. I just refer to a lot of what we're experiencing with AI as like the ChatGPT moment. We'll refer to it a couple times, but you were at NVIDIA before then. Did it feel like you were working for a company that was about to become, the world's most valuable company and kind of the company that everyone's talking about? Did it feel like that back then?
no, honestly. I mean, I knew, I guess I should take one step back. I always thought that stuff that NVIDIA was doing was really cool. I, that's how I would describe it. I studied computer engineering in college, and when you study computer engineering, the like company that you want to aspire to work at is NVIDIA because they're the epitome of like the hardware that they built, the GPU and everything. So that's where I wanted to work, and I thought it was really cool. And I had other offers from other big tech companies, but I knew like, hey, NVIDIA is really cool, and um, it gives me an opportunity to work on stuff that you don't really get to do, especially as like a 22-year-old new grad engineer. And I just wanted to be in that environment. I didn't really know much about like AI or autonomous vehicles at the time. I just knew that like graphics cards were really powerful and you can do a lot of stuff with them. And getting to work on them is probably the best thing I could do for my career. And also it seemed like I had also interned there, so I had a chance to see the culture from the inside, and I would say that I just felt like I was at home when I was an intern, and I was like, yeah, I could see myself here for a long time, so why not?
And that was, we have to ask these days, that was in person at the time? You were an in-person intern there?
Yeah, yeah, I was an in-person intern. I was also in person full time,
Okay.
like 5 days in person, and I would say that I made a ton of memories, not just with the technical work, but with a lot of people there. And they're still some of my closest friends to this day.
So, a little bit off tangent, but a lot of people talk about, struggling finding their first job. It's a competitive job market. What did it take for you to, land the opportunity at NVIDIA, and any advice that you would share with people that are, struggling out there?
Yeah, so I think I stopped trying to find a job, ironically, when I ended up landing NVIDIA. Uh, what ended up happening was I took a class in college. It was by far, and to this day, my most favorite class in college. And as part of taking that class, serendipitously enough, there was a job posting for the exact requirements of what that class taught me. And so the interviews were incredibly easy and straightforward. And I didn't really apply to like a campus recruiter or anything. I literally just applied online. But at that point, there was a perfect fit from like what I learned in that class, what I had enjoyed, and the job description. And I got an interview, went through the interview process, and it was kind of straightforward from there. And then once my foot was in the door, it was a lot easier to turn that opportunity into like a full-time opportunity, even though the internship was with like a different team and a different manager than like the full-time opportunity. Uh, but yeah, I would say that I stopped worrying about the job and I started worrying about like enjoying what I was doing. And um, it's kind of how I approached everything in my career.
Yeah, I think there's a good metaphor for life, in that kind of focus on what you're good, either what you're into, focus on what you're excited about, and that will kind of lead you to these opportunities. And it sounds like that's what you did. Sri, what was the class that you took?
Oh, it was cloud computing.
Oh, okay, okay,
So it was cloud computing, and basically it was an introduction to AWS and how to use AWS through and through. And it was great because there's not really an opportunity to do that in college because college is mostly like theory based, but this was a very hands-on and practical class,
yeah, it
and I
seems
enjoyed it.
practical and valuable. Like yeah, you kind of get plugged right in and
Yeah.
begin adding immediate value. Curious on this topic. So you're probably part of a large intern class. So I don't know whatever the number is, but what does it take to stand out amongst a group of probably equally motivated and talented interns?
Yeah, there was a ton of interns. I think the picture of all of us is still out there somewhere. There's a couple hundred that summer. I would say that I never really, again, worried about like standing out from other interns. I can't really control the performance of other interns or other people. The only thing I could ever control was my energy and what I brought to the table. And as long as I knew I was bringing in my like 100 and 110%, I was going to be satisfied with myself. Yeah, that's just kind of how I measured success and growth and progress while I was there.
But did they tell you, like, did you, finish projects faster? Did you,
Oh, yeah.
solve problems better? Did you write cleaner code? Did they give you any kind of
Yeah.
feedback like that?
Yeah, I think that was at a high level, yes, all of those things that you listed were true, but the common denominator in everything was just approaching everything with a sense of urgency and a sense of importance, and also enjoying the work as well, where it doesn't matter if it's like a email response that's getting, that I'm responding to in like a couple of minutes, or it's like a project that should have taken a month that is now taking like a week. Yeah, I kind of say all of the above, but the underlying thing is like the right energy and the right approach towards the job.
That sounds like a through line, so far I'm picking up on.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so you were at NVIDIA, and then you decided to start your own company. So you started Mirage, and you started Mirage. again, I'll refer to the ChatGPT moment, but you started it before the ChatGPT moment. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep.
What
Before
was
the chat
what?
GPT.
Yeah, tell me what was going on, like, in the world. What was your impetus
Yeah.
for starting Mirage? How did the kind of concept
Yeah.
materialize?
Yeah. So, you know, we were or I was at NVIDIA, and at that point in time, I was working on my own side projects, and uh, at that point, I had not really dove into the world of like front end and real full stack development. I was pretty heavy in like the infrastructure and back end side of things, and I just wanted to understand like how do you build like an application fully end to end. I had actually done a little bit of it in that same cloud computing class, but um, we were seeing a new shift with React, and that library was changing, and I wanted to really understand how React worked. And so I started working on these side projects, and eventually I was like, you know what? Like I spent enough time at NVIDIA. I have some financial security. If I'm gonna do this and work on these projects full time, like now's the time to do it. Like I'm in my like mid to early 20s. I don't have any dependents. I'm like fully healthy, and uh, I can take this risk now. Uh, and so why not? And at that point as well, I was consuming a lot of content from YC and like sort of the startup ecosystem. And when you hear a lot of these stories of these origin stories, it is one incredibly inspiring, but two, uh, a lot of the most pivotal companies of our lifetime started in a garage, right? Like, so I was like, yeah, why not? And my absolute worst case backup plan was I'll go back to NVIDIA. And so, yeah, when I factored that all of that in, I was like, yeah, maybe it is time to do it.
So a couple things. Was it, Silicon Valley is infectious, so you kind of can't help but kind of get the startup bug. That's kind of maybe option one. Option two is you're making great inroads down a personal project path, and you're like, hey, this has legs.
Yeah, what was happening at the time was basically I was working like 9 to 6 for my day job, and then I was working from like 6 to 3 a.m. on my side projects. And eventually I like burned out, and uh it and I couldn't code for like a month after that. And I had to like basically be honest with myself of like, what do I want? And uh, I was like, yeah, like I think I want to do this. And at that point I had already completed like a handful of projects at NVIDIA. I had already been promoted. Um, and yeah, I was at a crossroads of like there's this path A, but I know where path A goes if I was to stay at NVIDIA. And then there's path B, which is uncharted territory, but a very unique opportunity that I probably won't get if I don't take it now.
Did you have family, friends support, ecosystem support, or were you just kind of like, are these things that you were telling yourself and you're like, this just makes sense to do?
Mostly things that I was telling myself. A lot of my friends from college, uh, they mostly stayed in sort of the tech. They are in tech, but they mostly stayed down path one. Um, and I was kind of the oddball that wanted to try path two. And a lot of my friends at NVIDIA, they're still at NVIDIA to this day.
Probably
So
happily, right? I
yeah,
mean, I'm sure they're doing very, very well there, right?
yeah, very
Yeah,
happily. Yeah.
yeah. So, so you started Mirage as a AI company, but before the ChatGPT moment. Maybe how
Yes.
popular or unpopular or novel or non-novel, and what were you kind of seeing of the world at the time that you started it?
Yeah. So when we started, yeah, it was before ChatGPT, and my co-founders and I, basically we were all ex-NVIDIAns at that point, and we had seen a lot of the stuff that NVIDIA was doing with robotics and computer vision, and we basically wanted to like bring that out to other companies and other teams working on robotics, especially around synthetic data. And little sort of preamble to this is that a lot of the data that NVIDIA needed in order to train the perception systems, it could not like easily access. So when you're training uh, like an autonomous vehicle, you're going to need data on pedestrians and cyclists, but like no government and no institute is going to be like, yeah, send your car to autonomously collect this data, right? And NVIDIA is not Tesla, where it has a bunch of vehicles already recording and out in the world. So NVIDIA's hypothesis and approach to that, one of the steps that they took was, can we generate this data in a synthetic 3D environment and then feed that into the model to improve perception? But a lot of work goes into actually building good synthetic data. And so we're like, okay, let's see if we can actually build a synthetic data platform for other teams that are in robotics, that are doing robotics that need this data, uh, but don't have a way to actually like easily obtain it. And I will candidly say that like I did not really know much about Scale AI or sort of the whole like data labeling business at that point in time. Um, this was mostly just coming from like what I had observed at NVIDIA and then like um, just trying to build.
Which makes sense. We used to recruit for autonomous car companies before, before anything AI, you know, related, and that was the common approach. And so it makes a lot of sense that there would be, perceived market for that. And so how did Mirage do? And then you guys got acquired pretty quickly. So yeah, tell
Yeah,
tell us how that came about.
yeah. So we ended up building uh, first building out that platform, and then uh, very quickly realized the reason why NVIDIA was able to do so well is that they have a lot of money and a lot of resources for synthetic data. Um, and the hard part was actually creating the assets. Uh, and at the time, the best way to create assets was uh, like you have a bunch of 3D artists and 3D designers. And again, NVIDIA has a lot of resources, so it's fine and easy for them to employ a large team to actually build this out. But when we tried to do it, we ran into that problem and immediately like, okay, can we programmatically generate these 3D assets? Um, and so that's how we first got started as this like 3D asset generation platform. And immediately, once the sort of ChatGPT boom happened, uh, we switched to like basically like a consumer product because uh, in order to actually run these models, you needed a decent amount of compute, and it's not like you everyone has compute at home. So everyone wanted to run these models and like generate these assets, but they didn't have the compute. And so then we became the platform that was hosting all the models. And we basically, anytime a new model came out, it was available on our platform in like less than 24 hours. And we kind of had built out the entire pipeline to like launch and deploy the models. And we ended up growing that to thousands of users uh, and eventually raised from Sequoia, was part of Sequoia Arc and their incubation program. It was relatively new at the time. Um, and then we had started exploring into other modalities. So image, audio, video, and eventually we had so many assets on the platform that the next immediate question was like, how do I search for these assets? How do I find what I'm looking for? And so we ended up becoming like a multimodal search platform where we had millions of assets on the platform and you could easily find anything that you were looking for across any modality. And yeah, the search platform was incredible. It was like 100x better than any other uh, 3D asset marketplace or any other other search platform that I had seen for other assets, especially because you could grow, you could search across modalities. Um, and then eventually we ended up having to do a pivot. And as part of that pivot, that's how we got introduced to the Harvey founders. And then that's what led to the acquisition as well.
Were you looking for an acquisition? Were they looking for, a team to acquire? How did that come about?
Yeah, so a part of it was we kind of were at a crossroads again of like, what direction do we take? And then we started talking to companies, and then Harvey at the time was like very early, but also like trying to grow the engineering team pretty rapidly. And Harvey had also raised from Sequoia at the same time. So when we got the introduction, there's already like a strong warm intro, but then they were like, wait, like you guys should join us. And when we started really entertaining those talks, it was like, oh, this actually might be a good fit for both sides. And then yeah, that's how we ended up there.
And how big was Mirage at the time as far as team?
Yeah, it was always the three of us.
Okay,
Like the three co-founders. We had a few contractors here and there, but in terms of full time, it was always the three of us.
nice. Congrats on the exit. I mean, Harvey's
Thank you.
a great
Yeah,
company.
yeah.
What was it like being part of Harvey and kind of like merging teams, visions, for maybe a greater good, a way to put it.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. I would say that uh, when I was at NVIDIA, one of the things that I really enjoyed there was community, and like I had a lot of colleagues that were around my age, and because we were in person, uh, we would have we would all be in the office till like 7 or 8 p.m. and eat dinner together, and that's how I built a lot of those like relationships. And when I got to Harvey, it was the first time I started seeing that again. The whole time we were at a startup, it was just the three of us in an apartment, so, it was a lot of fun, again, getting to work with people, in an office, in person, 5 days a week, sometimes 6, and, just getting to build those relationships and building a great product, and then, building together, and it was an energy that I missed, and I was glad to have while I was there.
Yeah, and I mean, it's huge, getting to exit, getting to go through the process of, starting a startup, building a startup. It sounds like you guys were pretty agile, in a number of ways. You were building through the ChatGPT moment, then you had a chance to get acquired. It's freaking awesome. And so huge experience, and it must still feel like you're just getting started from like a, career and, professional development, perspective, right?
Yeah, definitely. I learned a lot from the time at NVIDIA, the time at the startup, and a lot from Harvey. Getting to see Harvey grow from like a small team to, I think it was like maybe a couple million, maybe 10 million in revenue to now like north of 125 and maybe
Incredible.
150 now. So yeah,
Yeah.
incredible
How early,
journey.
how early were you there? What was the size of the team?
Uh, so I had joined right after I think the Series B. The engineering team was around 30, if I'm not wrong, but I think the team itself was still under 100.
Now, were they acquisitive? Were they, like, looking for startups to buy, or did they just kinda like you guys and, figured out a way to bring you in?
I think they liked us and they brought us in. And it also helped that we also had like the Sequoia relationship.
That makes sense. I, for some reason, see a future where a lot more of that happens. Like, my view of the world right now is there's a lot of startups that are building very early, and it's, groups of incredibly talented people. So from a talent density perspective, it's very thinned out right now, and there's, clearance steps at every kind of funding stage along the way. And it just makes a lot of sense that, groups of people work better together and that groups of people will add kind of greater value to, companies that are, moving kind of further upstream. It just feels like more of that's going to happen. I know it's a very organic sort of you know, it happens very organically, right? In your case, it was, organic introduction, right? Through a common investor.
Yeah, and there is something to be said that like it is organic, but also like the culture of Harvey at that time fit who we were as people as well. So they were a young company, they were still growing rapidly, and um, that was also what was really enticing about the opportunity, uh, as opposed to some of the. I mean, once the Harvey introduction happened and we started thinking about acquisition, we were talking to other companies, but Harvey just felt more like natural
Yeah.
to
Yeah. I
us.
get
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah,
A fit's a fit, right? You got,
yeah,
the fit's there. You got to go with it.
yeah.
So you stayed for about a year or so
Yep,
before moving?
a little over a year. Yeah.
Okay, and then that bug, right? That startup bug just kinda kept itching. Is that what yeah.
That's not exactly what happened. Very candidly, I thought I was going to like uh take 6 months off and uh if anything had and I wanted to work on again like side projects and like a passion project that was in the back of my mind. Um but then yeah, so I was gonna work on that and then I was gonna reevaluate in like early 2026. And the real goal was let's leave Harvey to sort of give myself time to really focus on these side projects. Um, but then I met an investor serendipitously in June, and he was like, Sree, like, what are you doing? Like, you say you want to leave Harvey, but like you don't really have another job, or you don't know what you're doing. And I was like, hey, look, like this is what's on my mind. I've been thinking about this for a lot. And I kind of just want to invest a couple months to figure this out. And then he was like, oh, that's actually really interesting. How much money do you need? I want to invest right now. And I was like, oh, I didn't even think about this as a startup. Um, but like, I guess I'll reevaluate. And that's sort of the catalyst that kickstarted everything.
Wow. So is that kind of how from your kind of view of the world, like startup inception goes? Like it's kind of someone's it's something on someone's mind, then it becomes something that like, oh, I should probably go to, like look further into that. And then it kind of just turns into, oh, there's something bigger here. Oh, there's someone that wants to kind of, be a part of it with me. And then is that kind of just how it goes?
I think I'm biased, obviously, when I'm going to preface that before I say this, but I think that's the best way for it to go. Um, because if you're doing something for the wrong reasons, it's really hard to keep going. And startups have a lot of ups and downs, but if it's something that you've thought about for a while and it's on your mind, you're thinking about it when you're in the shower, then maybe it has some merit and some legs to like actually like invest some time into. Yeah.
So, so you're now building this
Yeah.
this thing that was a passion project. Tell us a little bit about the vision, the passion. What was it that was consuming you?
Yeah. So, I mean, we talk a lot about like software engineering and building, uh, but the other big passion in my life is personal finance. And I have to thank Robinhood for this. Uh, because when I was in college, Robinhood had finally come out, and I didn't have that much money in college, but it was the first time I could actually like invest and trade stocks that without paying a commission. And ironically, at the time, I was investing in buying stocks of all the companies that I wanted to work at. So on that list were like NVIDIA, Google, Apple, and my whole thesis at that point was like, if I don't want to work there, then I shouldn't buy the stock. But I got really into it, got a lot of my friends into it as well. I still remember like the early days of Robinhood and like the scratch off raffle every time you did a referral. And that sort of then like led into a passion for like credit cards. And now I have like 20 credit cards. I started up a small blog on personal finance. That's what led to that Slack post in the NVIDIA personal finance channel. And I have tried insurance from many different personal finance apps, and also even like try getting a personal advisor or financial advisor, and eventually sort of kept running into the same problem over and over again. And I wanted to take 6 months to basically try to solve that problem. And the reason why I wanted to do it now as opposed to earlier was the maturity with AI has kind of reached a point where I could actually test out my hypotheses, and I couldn't do that before. Even with like with the launch of ChatGPT, and the models improving, a lot of the stuff that I was thinking just wouldn't have been possible even in 23 or 24, and like the better part of 25. And it wasn't until we reached like MCP, we got to the point of MCP and like tool calling and sort of that standardization, and I was like, okay, actually, like I think this is worth exploring.
The way AI and technologies accelerate right now is insane, right? I mean, it's not just like a year or two. It's like nothing, but like like the difference between today and like a year or two ago is like world changing practically. So what was the so I kind of get what you're saying, and I know we've talked about it, but for our listeners, right? I mean, what was the problem? What were you kind of like, what did you continuously run into as you were, enjoying Robinhood and these personal advisors and these other kind of channels you were going down?
Yeah, so the biggest thing was the was tax. Like I never really understood how to understand and basically pre-predict what my like tax liability was going to be at every juncture. Uh, I say this when you're a kid and you're like, or when you're a teenager and you get your first job in high school, you say maybe you're getting paid $20 an hour, but when you get your paycheck, it's a lot less than $20 an hour. I didn't understand how that was computed. And then, when you start working full time, especially in the Bay Area, when your compensation is a combination of like salary and like equity. The first time I got equity, a part of it was sold. And I was like so confused why a part of it was sold. And I was like, wait, why is NVIDIA selling a part of my equity? Like I don't want it to, but
Yeah,
it had to.
confused is probably a nice way of putting it, right?
Yeah,
'Cause
it was selling to cover the tax liability and it was still under withholding. I didn't understand what under withholding meant at the time, but yeah, like I was always like, wait, how is this number getting computed? Like, are there other ways around this? It's not that I'm against paying tax. It's just that I want to have more control over how the tax is being paid. And then as I moved on into my career, like when you get into startups, the tax implications are completely different and a different ballgame with the type of equity you get, and navigating that. And then when you go join um, when I joined Harvey again, same thing. Like tax consequences are very different, especially again because Harvey was private, and now Harvey last week just announced tender offer, and the tax implications of that are pretty big. But I also now am married, and when you bring in a partner into your finances, you have to start thinking more holistically, and there's just never been a good way for me to do that and navigate that, and that's what I wanted to solve.
I love that. I mean, those are all like very real problems, and no one, there aren't really ways to learn about those problems until you encounter those problems. And they're very expensive problems when you encounter them. You're like, crap, why didn't no one tell me about this like a year or two
Yeah,
before I ventured into this?
exactly. Yeah. And especially with private equity, it's incredibly expensive because you could be paying a tax bill on an asset that's not liquid yet.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
horrible.
yeah,
And so to the, I know you're still in stealth, but to,
mm,
to the extent you're comfortable, what can you tell us about what you're building?
yeah, yeah. So at a high level, what we're building is the first real tax forecasting engine for consumers. And the basic premise behind that is that you could bring your portfolio and you could run any simulation or workflow to determine how much tax you would owe. So, very simple example is, hey, I'm thinking about getting married. Should I file as two singles or should I file married filing jointly? Or maybe married filing separate. You might think, oh, like the canonical advice is always file jointly. But actually, under Trump's new tax bill, when you are in a uh, high tax state like California, it might actually be more advantageous to file as two singles instead of jointly.
Yeah,
So
very good. Okay,
yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
And so you're building a consumer product. So consumer, someone like me or any other kind of consumer would be able to sign up for this and use it for the benefit that you just described.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. Consumer product, still in stealth, and we've slowly onboarded a few users, but the basic premise is yeah, it's a consumer product. Anyone can use it, and everyone has to file taxes and think about taxes. So yeah.
Yeah. My accountant has a big poster on his wall that says there's two certainties in life, right? Death and taxes.
Yep. Yeah,
Facts.
yeah. Oh yeah. I was gonna add the number of CPAs in the world that help with tax planning and even tax filing is just dwindling. Like it's in the next, I think 10 to 15 years, 75% of CPAs are gonna retire. And who's gonna take the mantle once that
Yeah.
happens?
I
Yeah.
mean, probably AI.
Yeah.
And so, what you describe is, um, but what you describe as some of the problems you're encountering, like in today's day and age, I'd probably like go to ChatGPT, or Claude and just kind of, run the scenario. But I know ChatGPT's kind of general purpose. What's something that you're doing, or how are you kind of building what you're building, knowing that ChatGPT might be a resource, or competitive resource as well?
No, it's well, one, I have to thank ChatGPT and LLMs and AI because this product couldn't exist without them. But uh, the key, there's actually another startup that published a paper on this, but the LLMs have anywhere from like a 27 to 33% hit rate when it comes to like tax computation. And
Is
the
that
difference,
right? That's
yeah,
really low. That's bad. That sounds bad.
it's bad. Yeah. So this is I forget the models that they were using, but it was a few months ago. So I know it's not like 5.1 or 5.2, but yeah, it's still pretty bad. And my hypothesis from the very beginning was that like these models are not going to be able to solve tax. And I should never expect them to be able to solve tax. So what we're doing and what we're building is basically solving for accuracy and precision. So accuracy I define as like given a tax scenario, you're able to like be accurate to the dollar. And then precision, if you ask the same thing over and over again, like it's the same answer over and over again. Um, and that's really the difference between us and a ChatGPT or a Gemini and like just vanilla LLMs.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds important and
Yeah,
valuable and differentiated. And I mean, it sounds like I should not be, running my scenarios through ChatGPT.
yeah. I will say at a high level, the ChatGPT is great in terms of the high level like strategy and like has the right terms, but the difference is um, when it comes to your scenario and your numbers, you want like the quantitative analysis to be as accurate as possible.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
always messes up. I'm always double checking the work, and
yeah,
I'm always finding errors. And yeah, labor of love.
yeah.
But thank goodness that it exists. So what stage of building are you in right now? What does your team look like right now? What do who do you want to add to your team? When can we expect this to come out? I want to sign up.
Yeah, so we've been building for a couple months. We have a small beta that we have slowly started onboarding a few users with. The one qualifier that I've been using for onboarding users is like, what is your life event? So whether that's like buying a car or getting married or tender offer or getting a bonus, what is something that is like you're thinking about financially that would have tax implications? And mostly the goal right now is to just make sure that for these users, we are again accurate and precise. And the team right now is a team of three. We have one front end engineer, and um, we have one individual who has spent his entire career in tax and accounting, has no software experience, but he helps really with evals and making sure that we build the system in the right way. And looking to very actively looking to hire like an applied AI engineer.
I love that. I love your stage of startup. So and you're building right 100% of your
Yeah,
time, right? So it's basically
yeah,
2 engineers worth
yeah.
of building right now is happening.
Mhm.
And I'm sure you guys are cranking. Um,
Yes.
David, tell me a little bit about who you're hiring for, what they're doing right now.
Yeah.
What does your ideal kind of applied AI engineer look like?
Yeah. So yeah, the key next hire is going to be applied AI engineer, and there's a lot of stuff around. There's a lot of stuff that we can be doing, but we just don't have the bandwidth to do, especially around how our. I'm trying to balance this by not revealing too much of how our internal system
Yes,
works.
say whatever
Yeah,
you're comfortable with. Yeah.
yeah, but
Well,
essentially,
essentially,
like in order to ensure accuracy and precision, there's a lot of stuff that we have under the hood that is offloaded from the model, and um, building the synergy in order to make sure that the model is actually using what the tools that we have built the right way in order to make sure that all the computations are accurate is really important. So someone who has applied AI experience has worked with MCP and tool calling, prompt engineering, um, would be like the ideal fit.
I have a question just about like the like how fast the world is moving in the world of AI. So like, let's say like today's static world and what all the large language and all the different model providers and all the different model capabilities offer. Let's say that's a static version of the world, and then there's what you're building based on that, and then those models are evolving at a very fast pace. How do you build today while taking into account how fast the world is kind of evolving. Like, how fast is it evolving? How, often are you kind of changing direction, strategy, or evolving kind of what you're even building? How do you even keep up with all of it?
Yeah, so I think it's evolving not just in AI, in just traditional software engineering. So much has changed over the past 3 to 4 years that the way you build software is fundamentally different. And yes, it's AI, but there's also so many more tools and so much more stuff that you can look into when building a product or building a company. I think the best thing and best approach that I've found is like you're building for a user, and you should always be building in a way that you are optimizing for the end user. And it doesn't matter what the technology is, whether that's like Excel or whether that's AI. How are you going to serve your end user and deliver the best product experience possible for them? And so if you use that mindset, I think you kind of automatically shift and are able to make the trade-offs of like what to focus on and what not to focus on, and what to worry about and what not to worry about.
Interesting. So part of what I heard there is, so I know there are founders that kind of overemphasize like how they're building, and then there are founders that in your case like just build for the user, and that means that if the user wants whatever happens to be simple, great, give them simple. If the user happens to want whatever it is that takes a lot of architecting and a lot of engineering and a lot of this and that, then give them that. But kind of it sounds like the focus has to stay on the user.
Yeah, regardless of the time or the technology, the focus always has to be on the end user and the customer that you're solving for. It's very easy to get wrapped up in like AI and the technology, but like the technology is only as good as the purpose it solves
Yeah, yeah,
and
it's
the
just a
purpose it's used for.
tool. It's
It's
just
just
a
a tool.
tool, right? It's just a
Yeah,
tool. Interesting.
yeah. I kind of think of like when I think of like Excel, I think that was like a pivotal moment in a lot of like professional work. And AI is just another one of those pivotal moments. And it's going to change how people do work, but at the same time, like it's again just a technology and just a tool.
I asked this question of a lot of our guests. What's your prediction of how AI will impact the world positively or negatively? Will it take away all jobs? Will it usher in this kind of wave of just everyone not having to work and being self sustained by agents providing income? What do you foresee of the future?
I think AI is gonna like follow like a logarithmic curve and eventually hit like a carrying capacity, or an asymptote where like the incremental progress is marginal. But I don't think AI is going to take away jobs. I think AI is actually going to create more jobs. The same way that like again going back to Excel, Excel didn't like, you know, take away a bunch of like CPAs and accountants. It created more of them. It's going to be transformative for all professional work, but it's 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 going to change how we do work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Um,
that's how I think about it.
Yeah, okay, I'm on team Sree. I do believe that too. I've had people on, who believe it will take away jobs, it'll, very negatively impact economy and culture and society, and then I've had others who and I agree that it's gonna be additive. I think that I think AI will allow people to do, more and,
Yeah.
create even more value, and I don't think humans are gonna think of less things to do because of that. I think they're only gonna, get even greater imagination and want to build even
Yeah,
more, which will create, therefore more work.
exactly. Yeah.
Any bold predictions for 2026? What do you think is gonna happen next year?
For next year, ooh, I I don't know. I don't know if I have a bold prediction for 2026, but I would say that I think we are going to see uh yeah, actually I don't think I have one. I don't think I have a bold one. Yeah.
Do you
Sorry.
think we're do you think we're in an AI bubble? Do you think, there's some sort of a bubble that's gonna pop, or do you think this is all
Okay.
justified, per the vision?
Okay, I guess I do think we are in a bubble, but I'm not necessarily worried about it popping. And part of that is probably biased because I live in San Francisco and I'm building an AI startup, but there's still so much that is yet to be done that and the world actually hasn't experienced AI the same way that San Francisco and the Bay Area has experienced AI. Like if you go to another part of the country, they won't know what cursor is. They won't know what anthropic is. Um, and those same terms are like you hear night and day in the Bay Area. And so yeah, I find it hard for there to be for there to sort of just all implode. But there will be some sort of correction, mainly because I think it's just a little obscene at how quickly everything is going. But yeah, it's going to be similar to look, I was too young to understand the dot-com bubble, but the same way that like everything kind of went up and to the right and then eventually corrected, but in the long run, the impacts of the dot-com era and the internet are still existent to this day. I think we'll see something similar over time. Maybe not in 2026, but like in the long run.
I'm with you on that. I'm on Team Sree on that one as well. We tend to agree. Um,
Yeah.
cool. Well, Sree, thank you so much for joining us. If someone is excited about what you're building or an
Mhm.
applied AI engineer, how could they reach you, and what would you like to hear from someone who reaches out?
I would say that I will leave the challenge to figuring out how to reach me to the candidate. That's part of the process. It should be fairly straightforward. And yeah, if you're looking for a small, hungry team that is making a ton of impact in the users that we help, um, reach out.
Love that. Well, thank you again, Sree, for joining us. I'm so excited by what you're building. Sign me up. I want to be number one on that wait list.
Yeah.
And thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you. Yeah.